Very warm welcome. Distinguished speakers have already arrived. I think I'll start 1 or 2 minutes before time so that I don't eat into the precious time of distinguished speakers for this evening. It's a very lovely subject and a lot of insights we are going to share. First, let me warmly welcome all the viewers watching this program live in all our social media portals. You are the people who really encourage us. So many people watch our program. It's a really great encouragement for us to continue with the encouragement. In fact, the program on the MMA Amalgamation Business Leadership Award, so far we have over 32,000 viewers watching that on YouTube. And thanks so much. It's a great encouragement. Please pass it on to your friends. And that is the topic which I think that lecture is one should not miss. Talk by Mr. Chandrasekharan, Chairman Tata Sons. It's a real wisdom what he shared with everyone, and you should do that. Before I call upon the speakers, let me briefly tell you what's happening next few days in MMA so that you don't miss any one of them. Now, next is on 16th of March, we have MMA Women Managers Convention. Yes, we do it on the occasion of International Women's Day. On 8th, we don't do it, too much of rush is happening, so we give them a break for a week, then we do it after a week, and it's a celebration. We call it as a convention. We have some outstanding speakers. It's already sold out. We have no place. You can see the chairs are already been put. It's all preparation of what's happening for the convention. We have only accommodated only about 350 people. But all our programs are webcast live. And if you get an opportunity, if you have a time and inclination, please do watch. I'll tell you why you should watch it, because in inaugural session, we have two outstanding speakers will be sharing the thing. The theme of the convention this year is Level Up, and the speakers will be sharing their perspective during the inaugural session. Our Honorable Justice Srimati from Madras High Court, how she has come up and what made her to take legal, and how she today is much a coveted appointment as a High Court judge. Then we also have Nirmala Lakshman, is a chairperson of Hindu Group. Being a woman, how she is leading one of the largest publishers group, and how she is running a profession which is predominantly dominated by the males. So you will hear a lot of interesting things. We have very, very interesting sessions on different type of special sessions. We have session on new rules of leadership. We have Ponni Oscar, one of the finest architect in India. She's the one who constructed the Andhra Pradesh Assembly, and great architect and a person of repute, and really clear thinking about what she's doing and how a male-dominated area is architecture. How I know one of the lady when she came and spoke here, her parents were dead against her joining in Anna University architect course. The only reason why the parents are ready, no, நீ வெளியில போய் வெயிலெல்லாம் வேலை செய்ய நீ கருத்துட்டு உன்னை யார் கல்யாணம் பண்ணிவாங்கன்னு. That is the mindset of the parents, and she ultimately she joined architecture, and she's very, very successful architect. She stays in Trichy. She came and spoke in MMA. I still remember that. Then we have another person who is outstanding. You should not miss listening to her. Squad leader Mona Singh Jitwal. She's the first woman fighter pilot of Indian Air Force, combat fighter pilot. She's serving. She's coming from one of the forward base to come and speak to us. And you must listen to her story actually. What made her to be a fighter pilot, which is the domination of real male thing. And it's very, very, it's not easy. Fighter pilot, your body needs to take a lot of anti-G impacts, and every time when you fly and come down after a couple of sorties at that speed, you lose quite a bit of energy, and you lose, at times people lose as much as 2 to 3 kgs of your weight actually. So, and it's quite tough. That's the only place where you don't have a steward, you don't have a co-pilot. You fly on your own self actually. You will be only person in the cockpit actually. So listen to her story. It's very, very inspiring. She is. I got a special clearance from Air Coders for the people to come and do this. So don't miss to watch it, and come, and otherwise watch it online. It's available for you. Then we also have Winning Together, Aparna Popat, Olympian great badminton player. She's going to be there in conversation with Charanya Modi. Then we also have a session on Like a Boss. There are 2 outstanding women achievers. One is Bharati Bhaskar. You all know her. She is a regular Pattimandram. She's again a good corporate leader from Citibank, and she's also runs regularly columns in newspapers. Along with her, we got Ekta Kumar, columnist, speaker, and artist. She's coming from Delhi, and they are going to have a conversation chat with what it means like a boss actually, and that's why today they are working like a boss on their own. So you will learn quite a bit of things from these speakers. Listen to them online. You have not really booked your seat at MMA, and the last session of the day would be Thrive. How to thrive in difficult situations, where we have Preeti Srinivasan, founder of Soul Free. She's going to be there. Again, an interesting story. At the age of 19, she was the under 19 captain, and some freak accident, she became totally disabled. And only senses she has got is only above thing, I remember in armed forces, one of the general mentioned to the thing, see, in our place, so many people are all working, no limbs, no legs, still they fight, there are warriors. Then another general told me, yeah, so many other working without this, don't worry, everybody will work together. So why I'm telling you, we're all so able-bodied, come and listen to her. You will tell me, if you want to thrive in a situation where things fall in your place unexpectedly, and even if you have something, how you want to bring the best in you. Why I'm telling this all the thing, listening to them, it will really, really inspire you. Now, coming to today's, then there are a lot of other events. I don't want to take too much of your time. And quickly to tell you, there's an event happening on, the next event is happening on, this is very important. This is war, liberation of Bangladesh. The fighter pilot who fought Bangladesh war, old man, 82 years old, we're going to come and speak his story. What did he do in Bangladesh? What is in the front line, what he did actually. So he's going to be talking to us. This is happening on, Air Marshal Vartman will be, he'll be chairing the session on 21st of March. Then 25th of March, we have another very, very interesting event. Right or wrong, GDP way to measure the growth actually. There's a lot of discussion. We don't know whether right or wrong. We have got three outstanding economists. One is Arun Kumar. You must have seen him. Dadiwala is JNU. I think former Malcolm Al-Shishya Chair Professor. Shivaraman, former IIMF and former Revenue Secretary. We also have Maumita Pal, economist from Deloitte. So it's going to be another interesting event. This is happening on 25th. Then on 28th, again, interesting event. Leading through adversity, management and leadership principles in high stakes of challenges. Because when you don't know when it's going to hit you, what actually. When something hits you, how you have to prepare yourself and how you don't lose the self-confidence. We have got three outstanding personalities who will be sharing their insights. Again, we have Radha Krishnan, she is a cancer survivor. Mr. Jose Eshko is a Director of Medical Oncology from Apollo Hospital. Anand Krishnan is a founder, is a corporate leader, great achiever, is coming from Dubai. And Rukmani Pravakaran is a mediation teacher, writer, poet. She will be leading the conference. So these are some of the program, and don't miss it. If you're not able to join us, watch it online and pass it on to your friends. I'm quite sure every program, what we bring it, you will inspire you. You get inspired, you will get automatically inspired. Actually. Thank you. And now coming to today's event, Read and Grow. This is a subject which we do it every month only for the management students. Again, every time I tell you, not a reader, you can never be a great leader. And all great leaders are great readers actually. And we've got three outstanding personalities with us today who are going to be joining us and discussing on very, very important theme, the art of thinking clearly. Actually. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to welcome three outstanding panelists for this evening, Babu Krishnamoorthy, Sunder, Ananta, and Shankar Bhatt. May I request you please take your place on the dais, sir. Before I request Babu to take it forward, I think I must really place on my record Babu and his team. Month after month, they bring in some outstanding book and outstanding speakers to come and discuss. And let me have the privilege of introducing Babu. Babu is a founder of and chief chef of Finsherpa Investments Pvt Ltd, Chennai, specializes in wealth management, high net worth clients with over 25 years of experience, including a role as a Pelican Wealth and a number of other companies. And he's also written a book on personal finance, Unlock Secrets to a Wealthy Life. Also sought after speaker, investment topics that I know. He's a great orator. It's really, really wonderful listening to him. And active Rotarian, past president, and a person who believes in process and systems. I've seen some of the activities, what he does in Rotary, how much he discussed before taking forward an event. Very warm welcome to you, Mr. Babu. It's a pleasure to have you with us. The distinguished panelists who joined Mr. Babu is Mr. Sunder Ananta. Sunder Ananta is executive coach of subject matter expert on leadership skills, globally certified professional on talent development, and he's got over 31 years of experience in international consulting and major corporations like IBM, HP, and all this are his consultants, and associate director of talent strategy at Kendrill, and also he drives research on talent and leadership development, specializing in developing leaders of all levels. He is certified in various instruments and has led flagship leadership programs for companies such as IBM and McKellen, and emphasizing collaboration and emotional intelligence. Mr. Sundar, again, the pleasure to have you with us. Very warm welcome to you again, sir. Then we have Mr. Shankar Bhatt. Shankar Bhatt is a managing partner of Credo Capital, a mutual fund distribution firm with over 13 years of experience and with over 24 years of in finance and industry. Yes, work at esteemed brokerage like ILFS Investment and Tower Capital, gaining expertise in both bond and stock market. He holds a BSc in computer science from Bharat Vidyapeeth University and DCM in capital market from ICFAI. And very warm welcome to you, Mr. Shankar. It's a pleasure. Whenever we talk about bond, we are worried now what will happen to the bond, but ultimately will come out. Anything. And good to have you with us. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for the distinguished panel. And I'm quite sure we're going to have a feast of time this evening. And as usual, all viewers watching, people here, if you have any questions, there's a question pens available. Please write your question. The idea is you should accommodate as many questions as possible. Over to you, Mr. Babu. And we are looking forward to a great evening.
Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. I come here once in 3 months, and it's always energizing to be inside the MMA. The amount of activity that MMA does is just outstanding. I'm just truly inspired. Thank you, sir. And so I always start with this explanation for why I picked this book, and also give a small background about the author. But first, I'm going to start with giving up the thing about the author. The author is a guy called Rolf Dobelli. Received his MBA and PhD in philosophy from the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. Many authors are the American-based, but this one gentleman is European, so that is visible in the style in which he kind of presents his book. He's a serial entrepreneur, thinker, writer. He has co-founded Get Abstract, also founded World Minds, a community of some of the world's most distinguished thinkers, scientists, artists, and entrepreneurs, including Nobel Prize winners Joseph Stiglitz, Matt Ridley, Henry Kissinger, historian Neil Ferguson, philosopher Daniel Dennett, Henry Kravis, and many, many others. Some of the leading thinkers of the world come together on the World.Minds community. He regularly writes in some of the most esteemed newspapers in Europe, and has been featured in Bloomberg and every other Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and many others. Dobelli is best known for his book on Art of Thinking Clearly, which spent over 30 weeks in the #1 spot in the Europe's best book when it was launched. But I didn't know all this. I picked it up from the internet. I read this book for a completely different reason. As human beings, one of the tasks we do very often, apart from sleeping and eating, is making decisions. Scientifically, it's proven that we make roughly about, an average human being makes about 35,000 decisions in a day. We don't even realize, right? 35,000 decisions. Even as I speak, there are thoughts in my mind as to what word I should use where, right? So to that point, we are making decisions constantly. Now, the question is, all of us believe that we are making decisions very consciously. We are choosing it. We are well thought out decisions. And there is a survey for that also, which found some of the most rational thinkers in this world. I mean, you call them the brilliant minds, the most rational thinkers that we have ever seen. And when you apply a certain scientific metric to their decision making, you find that they have reached about 50% rational. Their most rational decision is a 50% thought out, which means 50% of their decision making is emotional, is in some passion, in some way, it's a kind of done on the go. If that is the case for a rational human being, then for many of us, I think we need to go into the depth of what we need to learn about decision making. How do we make better decisions? Especially if you're going to make 35,000 decisions every day, then we better get it right in terms of decision making. That's what got me hooked to taking this book. Now, there are a few people who have mastered the art of making fewer decisions. I believe Steve Jobs had a wardrobe that had exactly the same color shirt and pant for 7 days of the week. Because for him, there is finite amount of intelligence, and he did not want to waste it making decisions on what shirt to wear and what pant to wear. It may sound very silly to all of us, but that's the level to which leaders have gone in terms of saying, when I want to wear a cloth, it has to be the same color. So there is no decision making needed in that if I'm going to wear. And if you see Steve Jobs, in most photographs, he'll have a gray turtleneck t-shirt and a jeans, right? So that's the same 7 days, he'll wear the same thing. So there's no decision making involved. So if you can get down the number of decision making things, so some of the leaders have used that route. But one of the things that I have discovered in my journey of life has been that many of the decisions we make, since there is a limitation of time and we have to make so many decisions, we try and do what is called fly by night, right? So we look at the most optimum decision that comes to your mind and pick it up as we go. It may not be what is well thought out, it may not be researched, it may not be a logical one, but we just go with that. And rarely do we come back and analyze if that decision is correct or wrong. And that's where I found that a book like Art of Thinking Clearly plays a huge role. Now, by no means is Rolf Dobelli the only guy who's written about this book. There are lots of books. There's another book called Think Hard and Think Slow, and which is also a great book in the same thing. But the difference between that book and this is that book is a little bit for scholarly people. You know, you've got to be at it and you've got to read. That was written by a Nobel laureate. So he has written it the way he perceived things. It's so very, very good book, but it's not for a lot of us. Whereas The Art of Thinking Clearly is a simple enough book. You have probably about 40, 50 chapters, and each of them is only 3-4 pages, each concept. And it beautifully dwells with the idea of a story, and the story reveals a concept, and that concept is elaborated and finishes. So even if you didn't have the time to read the entire book, if every day you spend 10 minutes while you have a cup of coffee, you could finish the book in no time. More importantly, the way I have used this book over the last 4-5 years is that I have kept it at my desk. And whenever I made a decision or I had a little time to think, I'd think about and open a chapter and see whether my decision resonated with what's written about that decision-making process. And I have often found that going through has helped me understand that some of my decision-making processes were not the best ones, and helped me kind of at least think about correcting it as we go along. So I thought this was a great book, since as either students of management or people who are in business or in whatever vocation, we are taking decisions on a daily basis. I think getting it right is a very, very important aspect. So that said, I'm going to pause here. I have two very important guests and eminent people who also had a great journey, 30 years plus and almost 25 years, Shankar's journey as well. So I'm going to reach out to them and get their initial impression on the book. Over to you, Sunder. What's your initial thoughts on the book, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Babu. All right, before I respond to that, I'm just going to, it's good to see a lot of students here in the room, so I'm just going to call upon all of you to do a small exercise with me, okay? What I'm going to ask you to do is to cross your hands, right? And how do you do that? Okay, can everybody do that? Okay, now I want you to look at how you crossed your hand. I want you to look at how you crossed your hand, and I want you to do it the other way. Try it the other way. Okay, doable? It's doable, but it was a bit more difficult than how it was the first time, right? So this is a simple experiment to kind of tell us that, we are all, we have a certain way of deciding things. and which we call as a unconscious bias. But to respond to the question that was asked on my initial impressions of the book, I think we've all heard of the famous saying, to err is human and to forgive divine, right? You've heard that. That's what it is all about. We are all humans and we are prone to making a lot of thinking errors. So what this book is essentially trying to do is to highlight that we are all subject to an array of thinking errors, right? And it is perfectly human for us to make those errors, but to be aware of it and then be able to make better decisions is what is the idea behind this book. And so Rolf Dobelli in his book has used 99 such anecdotal stories. There are 99 chapters in the book, which is kind of giving you glimpses of what are the typical pitfalls that one goes through. But to be aware of it and to be able to handle those and make better decisions is what you will gain from the book. While writing this book, what he has also done, he's used very subtle humor. He's used humor in a way that makes this book really engaging. So I would urge all of you to, like Babu said, perhaps read one chapter, even if it is on a week, even if you read one chapter and just mull over the contents of it, you will find a lot of benefit. And that's how I feel a lot of what has been talked about are some of the unconscious biases that we all have. And how do you overcome some of it is what this book is all about. And that's a great benefit, I think, over the years I have seen. And if I read the book now, I'm able to go back and see why did I do what I did. So that in itself is a phenomenal benefit of reading the book. So that's my initial thought on it.
Thank you, Sunder. I want Shankar. Incidentally, Shankar is, yesterday only I contacted him because the earlier speaker I had dropped out, but I was fairly sure that Shankar would have read this book because he's also in the investment advisory space and he's a thought leader himself. And so thank you, Shankar, for kind of dropping in at the last minute. And because there's a lot of decision making that happens in the investment era, I think he'll come up with some engaging stories, which is also why I reached out. So hopefully the stories will come. But give us your initial thoughts on the book, Shankar.
Thanks, Babu. It's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. Even though it was last minute, luckily I've read the book previously, so I just needed to brush it up a little bit. So as Sunder pointed out, it is just 99 different ideas of 2 pages each. It is not a big, nothing too elaborate, nothing too scientific or anything about it. It's very simple with humor and anecdotal stories written. So how do I think about this book myself? For example, Babu mentioned about Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Danny Kahneman's one statement that he made, is very, very thought-provoking to me as an individual, and I'm sure today it is much more important to all of us. Now, this was made probably in somewhere in 1980s, it's not today's statement. When somebody asked Danny Kahneman's partner, Amos Tversky, who's no more, what he does, he's a professor, he's researching, he's a PhD scholar and all that. So he said, my colleagues in the university that he is with, they all study artificial intelligence. That was an up and coming thing at that point in time. Today, of course, it is, we all know about it. So he said, my colleagues, they study artificial intelligence. I study natural stupidity, right? So because human beings are wired to make decisions, and after making the decisions, we try to rationalize it. So his entire thinking was based on why do we do that? Why do we make those silly mistakes? Which later on we realize the silly mistakes, but while making it, we don't think so. So this in a nutshell is what the book is about. Why we make decisions and what makes us do the decision and how can we make decisions better. So by thinking clearly, you could come up with ideas that when you come across a situation, a real life situation, do I do this or do I not do this, or do something else with my time? You can frame it in such a way that you can think emotionally and take the decision, or you can think, am I doing this the right way? Am I doing this rationally? Does this make sense? In that way, if we do, then probably the decisions could be better. And as Babu also said, lesser the decisions you make, it is better, So you don't have to take too many decisions. So he mentioned about Steve Jobs. I remember probably the person who started that wearing the same dress 7 days a week was, if I recall, Albert Einstein. So he used to have the same, wardrobe so that he doesn't waste time in deciding what to wear. So that way, it seems that these great minds think alike, right? So why they do that? So just since he mentioned Steve Jobs, I'll just give another anecdote on thinking clearly and maybe differently. So when Steve Jobs, designed the iPhone. So at that time, if you recall, the phones were the basic phones, even the smartest phones, BlackBerry at that time, it had like as much buttons as possible, right? So more the buttons, we used to think the swankier the phone is. That's how we used to be. It's a flip phone. It has all the A to Z. It has all the numbers, everything. So it seems Steve Jobs told his designer to come up with as less buttons as possible. Again, less decision making. So that guy, after breaking his head, literally slogging it out, came out with a prototype of 3 buttons. Steve Jobs said, "I want only one." So this is how thinking is plays out in real life, and this book, in that sense, helps you to think about those decisions in a much better way, in my opinion.
Thank you, Shankar. That was very insightful. Especially, I'm going to take that natural stupidity. Artificial intelligence, natural stupidity was fantastic. When we read this book, and when I read this book, some things occur to you like a eureka, right? Oops, I wish I had known this kind of stuff. So I'm going to recount 3, and I'm sure, as both of you would have read, you would have had your personal experience, which would have kind of come out and said, wow, I kind of can relate to that. And the classic thing, when the topic of anchoring happened, and the classic thing I still remember is that, I used to leave my vehicle for service. And every time I left it for service, that guy will give me an estimate that come back in the evening at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You can pick it up, and he'll give me a list. This is going, this is gone, this looks like it's gone. So we'll replace all this, and he'll give me an estimate of, say, 15,000 rupees, right? So I have a heavy heart. Every time I leave it for service, and I'm voluntarily going and leaving the vehicle, he'll say 15,000, right? So, but it's got to be done, so I walk away. An evening when I come back, he will say, the actual cost is only 12,000. What a happy man I'll be, right? I've saved 3,000 rupees. Always delightful. When I came home from a service center, I'd always be in a happy mode. When I read this book, I realized what that guy was doing to me, right? He was actually doing what is a bias which we call anchoring. He has somehow anchored me to that 15,000 rupees. And therefore, when the reality turns out that it's not 15,000, it's lesser, we feel delighted. In reality, that 15,000 is the number that we need to have questioned. So the next time I went to service center, I started questioning how that 15,000 came a little bit more in detail. We make hundreds of decisions. We negotiate on hundreds of things. But we negotiate from the price that is mentioned. Rarely do we even question that price itself, right? And that's really where this book gives you a different twist. So the anchoring bias is that when you're anchored to something somebody says it's impossible. You know, for instance, Roger Bannister, classic example, you can't run a mile under 4, was an anchoring bias. 4 minutes it takes to run. Human beings can never run a mile under 4 minutes was Roger Bannister's, people told Roger Bannister, the British athlete, right? And he said, how is it even possible? Well, who said we cannot run? And then it is so powerful that when Roger Bannister beat that, till Roger Bannister beat, for the last 70 years, nobody could beat that 4-minute mark. And when Roger Bannister beat that 1 mile in 4 minutes, 3 weeks later, the second guy beat it. 4 weeks later, some 20 people had beaten that 4 minutes, right? Then we stopped counting after that. So the anchoring in both positive and negative can be a big bias in our heads. Imagine if Roger Bannister also believed that, no, 4 minutes, humans can't run a mile within 4 minutes, we would have never had any growth. So that was a great kind of revelation, something that had happened to me before, but I was able to relate to it through the book. Similarly, one real life incident happened, and this has something to do with information bias. We're all exposed to hundreds of information. You open the television channel, you get the newspaper, you're struck by so much of news, right? And that news bends your mind in a certain way. You tend to think in a certain way. So I still remember when this global financial crisis had happened. Stock markets in India had fallen 60%. And I had a visiting professor in US who was here, and he had just sold his property in Adyar, and he had a lump sum money he wanted to invest. So he had no clue about the Indian market, and being a professor of some chemistry or something like that, he has nothing to do with stock market, nothing to do with newspapers, had no inkling. So we were chatting about where he wanted to deploy, and I was naturally nudging him towards safe zone, right? Markets have crashed, markets are crashing, stock market is not the place for you. He said, perfectly okay, I don't need the money for 5 years. Let's put it in stock market. And every day we were seeing red on portfolios. I said, this is the worst time to be in stock market kind of thought process, because I was buying 4 newspapers and I was undergoing the torture of reading stock market losses 4 times over every day, right? So my bias was there. This gentleman had no news, no information, zero. So he said, just go ahead, let's put it away. 5 years, I'm okay with this. This is extra money. I don't need it for my livelihood. You will not imagine, we took that chance. We put that money into equity mutual fund. We didn't buy stocks. We put it in mutual funds at the peak of the market drop. And I remember 15 months later, I could give him his 50 lakhs and he still had about 70 lakhs in the portfolio. And every 24 months thereafter, he took back his 50 lakhs of investment, kept doing, right? And the only reason I realized was that I was afflicted by the information bias. There's something called, if you know something and there's something that's happened bad, recency, that influences our mind, which is why, in September 11, the US Twin Tower blast happened. The next 2 months, the largest financial product that was sold in US was insurance. Right? People go all over and buy. So it's all called recency bias. So only when you go through some of these and when you've read this book, you realize, oh my God, this is it. And hopefully we will tend to make better decisions going forward. So that's my great takeaway in this book. I want to hear Sundar's takeaways as well.
Yeah, thanks, Babu. That's a great example of the bias that is at play. I'm reminded of one myself, and because you must read the chapter which talks about don't cling to things, which talks about something called the endowment effect. Now, the endowment effect essentially is saying that if you own something, say for example, a coffee mug or a house, if you bought a house, you tend to, because of the memories that you create, you tend to overvalue the the property. And so this is one of the reasons why you will see that many of us struggle in with the clutter that exists at home. We have so much that we are not able to dispose of it in a timely manner, right? And the endowment effect is also a good reminder that we tend to overvalue things that have a certain association for us. For example, in my case, I have seen that, because I bought a house which had memories because the kids were born there and so on, I tend to price it at a certain number. But the market may not be behaving in that manner. And therefore, it becomes difficult to be able to dispose of something that you want to get rid of, right? That's the challenge. That's the endowment effect at play. So don't cling to things is something that, obviously we have to use the right mechanisms before we make that kind of a decision. But it's a very common thinking error that many of us go through, where we start clinging on to things just because of the value it has given to me. It may not be the value for you, right? But that's the way I look at things. And therefore I tend to inflate the value of the house or mug or whatever it is, and therefore not able to sell. Now, related to this is another very interesting thinking fallacy called the sunk cost fallacy, which I like to also talk about. It's a very wonderful one, because it talks about a very common thing, and for many of our students who are here, it will be interesting to know of a story that happened with me, because the sunk cost fallacy basically says that if you start investing a lot of effort into something, you tend to not be able to know when to move away from it. And let me give you an example, because I use the sunk cost fallacy in a way to help me in my career. Now, I was working at IBM in the US. I was doing a certain technical career. I was doing really well, and I could have continued to stay there, and made a lot of money and enjoyed myself there, for whatever reasons. But then at some point, I realized that all the technical skills that I had developed will continue to pay me a lot if I continue to live there. But since I was aware of the sunk cost fallacy, which means that it is a trap, sometimes the effort you have put in gaining something can actually come in the way of you moving on to something else, right? So what I was missing was a purpose motive in the work that I was doing. So that made me think about reassessing my career, and that's when I decided to come back to India and start working in a very different field altogether, which is in the area of behavioral science and being able to help others to achieve their goals, right? So that is how I got into this whole area of executive coaching and helping others. But the point is that the sunk cost fallacy could easily have trapped me into the earlier career that I was part of. And so this is important for all of you students who are listening in. While you do start off your career in a certain manner, you don't necessarily have to be, totally held hostage just because you have put in that much effort in gaining that career. You will have to be able to adapt yourself, and that's when you start owning your career, right? So that's a couple of thoughts on.
Yes, Shankar, some stories from you.
Probably since most of your students and, he talked about sunk cost fallacy, I'll just add on to that. So my graduation was in computer science, right? So, say in US, it is very common for people to join the college in something they like, and then halfway through they move on to something else, right? So we don't have that option. You cannot start with computer science and go to physics or economics or something. We are supposing to have that in the new education policy, but it's not there still. So my idea was that, suddenly I got interested in investing and all that, stocks and all that. So, and suddenly computer science was not I just joined it because everybody else was joining it. So that was the in thing to do. My science teacher in 11th standard said, we have only one AC room in the entire school, and that is the computer science lab. Even the headmaster doesn't have AC room, right? The principal doesn't have AC room. You can sit jolly in the AC room and, do something. You can learn the computer. So I said, fine, great. So, but having gotten into college, it was not that much interesting, So, but everybody in my class was going on that way. They completed their studies, they did MCA, they went to US, very, very successful people in their own right, absolutely no doubt about it. But for me, it was not, I didn't like pursuing that better. So the choice, it was like going against the grain was very, very tough because everybody said, you've done it. It's very easy to get a job now. Your relative is doing it. Somebody else is doing it. Do a MCA, do a MSc, go to US. Even if BSc also, we can get somebody to sponsor you to go to US, all that. But, I wanted to do something different. So I learned that a hard way. Of course, I made probably, in the book talks about 99 biases. I would have probably made 100 biases in choosing the career at the peak of the stock markets in 95 or something, and going through trouble to unlearn, relearn and all that. But then, I wanted to get away from the sunk cost. So if I had taken that same path, maybe I would have been as successful, if not more successful than most of my friends, my classmates. But then today I have that, thing that I, ignored the sunk costs and, took the road less traveled. That is one input that I can give you. So second is, we all have this habit of, one of the biases are, the chapter in the book is drawing bullseye around the arrow, right? So technically, you shoot the arrow and it's supposed to hit the bullseye. That's how things work in sports. But we have a tendency to shoot the arrow and then trying to draw the arrow around where we have shot it, wherever it may be, here, there, wherever it is, right? So we justify, we, after taking a decision, we justify saying, see, my decision is right. And we try to somehow make it correct. So that is again something we should avoid, So if you have made a mistake, you have made a mistake. There's absolutely nothing wrong about it. Trying to whitewash it or, trying to make it right after doing a mistake it doesn't help generally. Second is that one thing which, as an investment advisor or a financial mutual fund distributor, that helps me is that over a period of this comes with experience. This doesn't come automatically, but books like these can actually help you gain knowledge that probably 3-4 years of work experience will not give you. So I think the best way to learn in life, which I learned unfortunately later in life, is that you don't have to go through these experiences yourself to learn, right? So you can go through it by leaning on others' experiences, right? So, and who are those others? These are people who write books like this, right? They are, and now if you take this book, for example, it's not that he has undergone most of the experiences written in that book. He is just quoting many other authors, Babu mentioned about Thinking Fast and Slow, Professor Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize for his behavioral thesis. So, see, like that, he's drawn upon various authors and presented it in a nice format, so crisp, nice 99 chapter format, 2 pages each, right? So, one thing that helped me after a lot of experience was that all the data that is presented to you is mostly cherry-picked data. So you shouldn't fall for it. So just as Babu was mentioning about, the guy mechanic saying 15,000 and then in the evening coming back and saying 12,000, which makes us think we have saved 3,000, whereas the actual cost may have been only 8,000, right? He just inflates it almost double and then gives you a discount on that. It's like our Adi Tallupadi that we see, right? So one day before that, if you see it will be 250 rupees per piece of dress or whatever it is. Next day it will be 500, cut 250. People flock to that thinking it's a big discount, right? So any data that is presented to you is cherry picked. So for example, I think Sir was mentioning about, is GDP, what is the real GDP, So it's very interesting that a number which is supposed to be a number like what time it is now, right? So time is time for everyone. Right? We cannot have different times for each of us. So GDP has to be same for everyone. The data is data. But we need to reinterpret. Everybody says, somebody will say something, it's growing, it's not growing. So it's cherry picking that we do. We should avoid cherry picking data and be assured that most likely the data that is given to you is cherry picked. So the headline that you read in the newspaper, two different newspapers, same news will be different, right? Depending on the view of the editor of that journal, right? So always have this antenna up saying, why is somebody telling me this, right? So what is his incentive to do so, right? So that probably helps you a little bit better. One second. Okay. One thing that I, always think about is less decision making is something I like. So I'll harp upon that a little bit more. What do you think is the best health improvement or health in the field of healthcare that has happened in the last, say, 50 years? Any guess? Anything. New discoveries, technology, we have scan, we have CT scan, all that, right? So I just read in this book that, it's very interesting to think of it that way. The best health change that has happened in the last 50 years, which has saved probably millions of lives, is that you should not smoke. So the best discovery was that you should not do this, right? So that was the best discovery. So so this is what not to do is also very, very important, So and that way, I think if we think, is it necessary to do something? Is it very important to do this? It helps us to make decisions better. Third is, again, something related to the work that I do is, people tend to ask people like us who are working in investment markets, what caused the market to fall today? Right? So, or what caused the market to go up today? And if you open a TV channel, business channel, we have a funny name for it, but I don't want to talk about it in public, right? So there will be an explanation that GDP results came out, so market went up. Then they were afraid that interest rates will have to be increased, so the market went down. So you'll have this kind of gyan going on 24/7. They have a channel, 24 hours, they have to play something, no? So they'll have somebody to keep on talking about it, right? So that is not worth at all. And there is no single cause for anything, So what is the cause for something to happen? Why did the apple fall? A physicist will say it fell because gravity, but the same gravity was there 1 hour before, no? Why did it fall at that particular time, right? So a biology guy will say, it had ripened. There are so many different explanations for the same particular thing, right? So we should not fall for the trap that there is a single reason for everything, right? There are many reasons for everything. There is no single reason. Okay, so finally, something that has helped me again, another thing from the book, which I've been practicing, but without knowing that it has made it in the book, is ignore news to the largest possible extent. So there is very difficult, decision to make between what is news and what is noise. There are days in which, I also, as Babu said, subscribe to 2 newspapers. Most of the time, it just piles up on my table, and once in 2-3 days, I just take it and put it in waste bin. So most of them, I don't even read it. So in today's 24/7 internet world, Twitter, Facebook, whatnot, if something has happened, you will get the news. So if a movie is very good, somebody will tell you that the movie is good. If earthquake has happened somewhere, you will know in 10 minutes the earthquake has happened. You actually don't need so much news at all in your life, So if you ignore to a large extent and work on some things which you need to do, right? So then it helps a lot. So why is no news good is one for people like my age. I am 50 plus, so it will lower your blood pressure a lot. So you don't, that time that you save from that can be used for something else productively. So avoiding chatter, noise, we call it news, but it's mostly noise. So it helps a lot. What is today's biggest topic is not the topic 3 months later, So you can avoid time wasted on that and something else productively. So that is one another input that I had.
Lots of very solid takeaways, Shankar. But I think on behalf of the audience, I'm going to ask this question. We started the program saying that you should read more. We are ending the program with saying don't read newspapers, right? So somewhere we have come a full circle, starting with saying read more. But I think the point is valid, right? So we live in an era where there is unlimited information flow. And our mind is a fertile garden. And you need to read what will productively grow there. If you read a lot of, like he says, noise, then your mind will be filled only with noise, and which the noise is actually not productive for good decision making. So you need to kind of, which is where, so I'm going to go to the next section quickly, about three minutes views from each of us. And I'm going to kind of start by giving, so 2-3 thoughts that came to me at the end of this book when I read it, and I said, I've got to kind of keep it as something in mind. We don't give enough importance to genetics in our thinking, right? And I think it's a very, very important part of who we are. And I'll give you a classic, of course, he tells a lot in between, but one of the thoughts that came to me is that the way many of us eat today is the way our ancestors ate, 200, 500,000 years ago, when there was absolutely no food on the table. They kind of gorged. Whenever they got food, they ate it. And they ate it in very large quantities because they were unsure when their next meal is going to be. And our genes have adapted to that thought process. Now, we continue to eat like that. Only thing, we continue to eat every 6 hours that way, as if we're never going to eat again, right? Which is why today so many health hazards happen. Now, that is 50,000 years of evolution that you have to counter. And for you to counter that, you will need to think afresh. You need to pause your mind. You need to refresh your mind. And which this book talks about. Before you make any decision, pause a minute. Think about what decision. Run it through the filters in your mind. And then take that move. And believe me, in a lot of sense, and he gives a beautiful example. He says, we're all in this room the living proof that 30,000 years ago, when our ancestors were walking through the forest and there was a small movement in the bush near, all of them ran. Because that's the only way you would survive. Because if you stood by and waited for what came out of that, and if it was a tiger, that guy's ancestor is not in this room, right? All of us share one common thing, is that our ancestors were the fastest runners. At the sign of trouble, they ran like hell, right? Which is why we are here. But it's no longer the jungle. We live in a corporate setup. We live in good cities. There is no imminent danger today. Yet, whenever we hear a news, the first thing our mind says is run, because that's how our ancestors survived. Run. somewhere we need to counter that thought process. We need to recondition the thought process. And I think unless we do that in our mind, somewhere our decision making is not going to be result. And the only way for us to grow and move to the next level and so on and so forth is by better decision making. We live in a world today that's all about decision making. And the smartest way is to be aware of how many ways you can go wrong in your decision making. And this book is a great start for that. That's my 3 minutes or more. Sunder, your 3 minutes.
Great thought, Babu. And I like to kind of end this by talking about something that one of the biases that we still I want you to think about it, because a lot of the students are going to face this. And that is something called the authority bias. The authority bias basically says that, don't blindly follow something that is said because that person is in a higher authority. Right? For example, very often what happens is we never question just because a public leader is saying it. For that matter, even the book that we are talking about is an authority. So you'll have to question even the book. Don't take it literally that everything, all of those 99 chapters in the book are things that will impact you. You'll have to question them, think critically, and then be able to take something from it, right? And I'll give you a great example, which I read in another book called Outliers, which is written by Malcolm Gladwell, which talks about the reason for Korean Airlines to have a huge, it was one of the worst rated airlines. And when they started examining why that was happening, they found out that as the flight was approaching landing, if the main pilot was making a mistake, the co-pilot was not questioning the main pilot, right? Because he is a greater authority, right? So it resulted in several crashes happening because of the errors made by the main pilot. So when they discovered that the thinking error there was about the authority bias, where the junior pilot was not questioning the senior pilot, and therefore the problem was happening, they came up with a very innovative solution, which is to bring in a different pilot from a different country, because the cultural aspect of the Korean was that I will obey whatever the senior pilot is saying. So when you have a foreign pilot in the co-pilot seat, he didn't go by that same yardstick, and they could negate the authority bias, right? So I think this has huge implications in how managers run their teams. If the manager is the authority figure, there is no psychological safety in the team, which means that as students, you must be able to question your teacher, right? You must be able to ask your lecturer, why is it this way, right? Without fear of being punished or that your grade will go low just because you asked that question, right? Again, authority bias at play. So one of the things we see in the corporate world is that managers tend to forget that they need to create psychological safety, which is essentially allowing people to challenge the authority figure, in this case, the manager. So if you create psychological safety, there is a possibility of the junior guy to question you. And that is very important in today's context, because if you want to survive, you'll need to be able to innovate. And the innovation comes from you, the younger people, right? So don't hold back. Just go read that authority bias mentioned in the book, and it'll give you a great start to your career.
Thank you, Sundar. That's a fantastic, especially for the younger guys. I think it's a fantastic. I had a friend who used to be part of an American company, still runs a BPO, and he was constantly saying, if two people agree all the time, then one becomes redundant, right? So be very careful, because we're moving into a world where unless you differ and you bring a different perspective to the table, you could be very redundant over periods of time. So I think completely agree with Sundar. Shankar, your quick closure comments.
Yeah, sure.
So one bias or whatever you call it, which is quite helpful, is avoiding herding. So I said my example of studying in computer science, but I didn't want to do that. But the pressure of just being the one guy in a class of 50 people not wanting to pursue it is very stifling, right? So but we had human beings, as he said, we survived because we ran, and we survived because we were herded together. There is a authority, there is a head, and there is a tribe, there is a sequence of authority. So I don't know if you have seen any diagram of how a village is there in any society. More or less, it's the same, say 10,000 years back or whatever it is. So there will be that outer wall, and there will be the chieftain's hut or whatever it is in the middle, and there will be other huts surrounding it. So there was a clear, this is same anywhere. Almost anywhere in the world, the pattern will be similar. So human beings have evolved through similar times, right? So it's because there is a authority. So, and we tend to herd. What happens in trouble, as he said, we ran, and where do we run? We ran into our huts, right? So if you avoid herding, because as he said, today we are not that fearful. There is no fear of somebody attacking you. Yeah, it happens, but once in a blue moon, right? So you don't have to herd today. You need to think for yourself, and you need to act for yourself, right? So we do things just because everybody and his brother is doing it doesn't help. This works beautifully in investments, so you just avoid doing what everyone else is doing and focus on what no one else is doing. It seems to help your investment results also better. So whether it's career, or investment, it seems to avoiding herding seems to help. That's one of my inputs.
Thank you, Shankar. That is a fascinating thing. We've come completely out of time, so I have a bunch of questions, but I'm going to give the first choice to the audience who have taken the trouble of coming here. There's a bunch of online questions here, but if there are any questions, please throw up your hand. In the next 10 seconds, if I don't see, I'm going to start here. Yeah, please. Can we have a mic? So 3 questions here, okay. That's all I will have time for. 1. You can take one of this mic, we can kind of. Yeah.
My name is Rajagopalan. My question to you, Babu. You mentioned about, the sense of urgency and, there is pressure on people to be always on the run and everything. But on the other hand, corporates, I think a lot of students will get into corporate jobs. There is value for agility and nimbleness. People expect you, companies want you to take decisions fast and swiftly and all that. At the same time, it's paradoxical that, we are also saying that you have to take time and mull over and take decisions. How do you deal with such aspects? And the other point about not reading newspapers and not reading every book that comes your way, how do you even know that, these are the books that we should be reading? Which are the ones which are good, which is noise and which is actual signal? It's all very confusing.
It's tough. I will not try and make it easy. It's very tough. Where you need to run fast, where you need to pause and think is not an easy decision to make. But I think if you self-analyze yourself over periods of time, you will know. For instance, over the past few years, I'm observing what I'm doing. And as a result, I know that in some places I need to be faster. In some places, I ought to have slowed down. And that, I think, comes out of self-observation. I want Shankar, if you have any.
Yeah, so just on the book or news part, I was specific, I would say that news more than books, right? Book, somebody goes through some trouble to sit and research and read and send it to a publisher, and that guy has to read it among the thousands of books that people send across, and some of it becomes like this one become an international hit. So these are probably the ideas that have floated to the top. You can give some credence to them. But what I mentioned more was about news. Engaging 24/7. What is right, what is wrong. Is this right? Is this decision right? Parliament kattirukkanuma kattakudada. All those kind of stuff. You can avoid those debates because it is done. Somebody has built it. Whether you and I are going to talk for 24 days here is not going to change the decision, right? So things like that.
Yeah. No, just a quick comment to that. It's a great question because I think it's often said that you need to go slow to go fast. Yeah. So I think taking time to step away from the chatter, the noise has great value in today because there is an information overload. You need to be able to step back and see what is it that you want out of all of that in the book, in the buffet that's out there. So.
Thank you, Sunder. Yeah.
First and foremost, thanks for the panelists that you have very nicely summarized what is there in the book and what is not there in the book. Mr. Shankar has made a mention, the last 50 years, the slogan on wellness, you mentioned not smoking, but the new slogan is, sitting is the new smoking, and the mantra is, movement is medicine. Anyway, recently, Harvard Medical School has come out with a finding that says the profound impact for the art of thinking clearly comes from the prefrontal cortex, that is in the brain. As we age, this gets shrunk. So how do you keep it, or how do you keep that active? Probably the students who have come, probably the one particular way forward which they can carry. One is the 99 ways of, which the anecdotes we have said. But how do I increase the art of clearly the Harvard School says there is only one way, and that is meditation. Because that goes exactly with what is there in Bhagavad Gita. When Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, meditation is the key for your clear thinking. So this is what I would like to share. I don't know whether the book has dealt about this, but this is what my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any questions? Somebody had a question. Please, we are running short of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To quickly summarize, we as students, right now, we have a lot of stress about campus placements and all, and we begin to think so much. So what do you think about overthinking? How should students actually overcome that?
You want to address? Okay. So actually, one of the 99 things written in the book is overthinking. So so this is something we all deal with in this day and age, right? So this book, in that chapter, what is mentioned, I don't remember exactly, but what I can say is what in a recent interview Dhoni told about performance and anxiety, right? So overthinking and all that. He said one way to do that is take the result out of your mind, right? So the result is not your what you're working towards. It is fine if they know. It's as Sir said. What Bhagavad Gita says. So if you take the equation of the result out of your mind and focus on the game, maybe that helps.
Absolutely. Good show. We have questions. I'm going to go a little quick. This is Arya from Bangalore. How can the principles outlined in the art of thinking clearly be applied practically in leadership and decision making context? Quick 60 seconds answer.
I know, but I think every bit of what is being said is talking about a thinking error, which is essentially unconscious bias. When we talked about thinking fast, thinking slow, look, we need to be able to make quick decisions. And so there is going to be that part of the brain which needs us to be able to do things quickly. And therefore, we are prone to those errors. So a lot of what this book can do is to be able to know that the next time you make a decision, am I falling into one of these thinking traps, is what you would want to ask yourself. I mean, you can't go through all 99 at one go, but you'll get better with it every time you start practicing it. And that's the whole point of this.
Thank you, Sunder. Well said. Over to you.
Yeah, how do you approach situations where there is disagreement or conflicting opinions among team members with regards to applying clear thinking principles to resolve the conflicts? I face them in my organization regularly. Franklin from Chennai. So, it's a very big question and tough question, but I'll just try to summarize it. So conflicts happen due to two things. One is because somebody wants to give a constructive opinion, or somebody wants to show off that he knows, right? So once we find out whether it is which one of which, I think we can be rest assured conflict can be easily resolved. So this is something that can be gained only through experience. But if you are sure that the person is talking only because he wants to talk and not because he has something constructive to offer to bring to the table, every team people find out very easily within 2 or 3, 4 meetings itself.
I'm going to take the next question. Akash from Salem has this question. From a financial perspective, how do you see the application of clear thinking principles influencing investment decisions and market strategy? This book is all about investment decisions. So if you're going to be a student of better investing, you better buy this book. This is the first investment you should do, right? So to answer Akash in Salem, it's no secret that the largest amount of money comes into the stock market when the stock market is already at its highest peak. And when the market is at its lowest point, when it's actually the very cheapest time to buy, there is no money. Nobody puts money. So it exactly points to the fact that there is herding, there is social proof. So everybody is selling, so I will also sell. Whether I need the money, I don't. So this book is a great book if you want to kind of make smart investments. So that's what I would say, Akash. Over to you, Sunder.
Thank you. Mahalakshmi from Chennai asks, in your experience, what are some common misconceptions or biases that leaders often fall victim to, and how can they be addressed? And what is your advice to young students on this? I go back to what I just said earlier on something called authority bias. Watch out, it's a trap, because when you become the leader or the manager, or if you are the parent, you fall trap to the fact that you are Mr. Know-it-all, right? Watch out, because you may not be the smartest person in the room. You may not know all the answers. And therefore, my advice to young kids is to question your parent, question your lecturer. Don't fall prey to the authority bias. This is the new age, and I think it's important to be able to ask questions and be able to, figure out things for yourself. So I appreciate the question there.
Yeah, ask questions, but ask it politely. Okay, just kind of. So I'm a parent too. So when my children ask questions, they are absolutely welcome to ask questions, but do it politely. Yeah. So this is Zara from Trichy, and this is the question: are there specific techniques and exercises you recommend to help individuals and teams to improve the clarity of thought, decision-making ability? Buy the book and read it, period. That's it. Thank you.
Final question, I guess. What role does self-awareness play in developing clearer thinking habits, and how do you help individuals cultivate this awareness? So the simple answer is buy and read the book, that's fine. But self-awareness is something which is philosophical. So you need a bit of philosophy in your life. So what kind of philosophy that you want to follow is up to you. But self-awareness basically is a philosophical concept that I have to, that I am doing this and I need to be aware that I am doing this. So I cannot be like, I don't even know what I am doing, right? But I will do something. So it shouldn't be the case. So any act that you do should be made with awareness. So it's a philosophical thing that then you need to follow which philosophy that you like to follow. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shankar, Sunder, and I hope for this added value. But we have just given you a glimpse, a trailer, 2-minute trailer of a 3-hour movie. The book is the real hero, and Rolf Dobelli is the person. So do buy that book. And like I mentioned, it needs to be on your desk if you want to keep it value. It's not something that you can read and forget about it. It needs to be your reference material. Thank you so much, MMA, for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. And we have over 285 people who are watching this program live today. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Thanks to all of you for sharing your questions as well. We could take some of them. We couldn't take some of them. Maybe next time we'll do that. And had a fabulous session, a fantastic topic, not an easy one. And I think the book, now it inspires all of us to read this book from what you've told us. So I think our thinking must become much more clear. At the end of the day, it's all like so many students are here. Thank you, students, for joining. I'm sure, like Mr. Babu mentioned, one of the best subjects for you guys to learn today is to go back, think clearly. The future is in front of you, so many options. A lot of confusion will be there. Go to the right person to take the right guidance, but eventually the decision should be yours. That's where thinking has to be clear. So I now invite Mr. Sundaram, who is our committee member, to join me on the stage to present a small book for the guests. We always believe in presenting more books for those who come here. We also invite Mr. Ramprasad, who also does this session for us month after month. He's also an author. So let me invite him also to join and do the honor. Thank you, students. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.